Let's take a look at question 1. Half of the members of a wellness group participate in weekly running events, and 70% of the members participate in other exercise programs. The percent of members who participate in both running events and other exercise programs must be between, and we are given some percentages up to 100. There is a very complicated explanation for this using lots of math symbols, but I want to try to make this as simple as I can. Let me think. Okay, first thing we need to realize is that there has to be some overlap. So let's break this down. It tells us that half, that's 50% of the members of a wellness group participate in weekly running events. So the first thing I have to realize is that half is the same as 50%. And then it tells me that 70% of the members participate in other exercise programs. So if we add these two together, and I can do that with the word and, we have 120%, which is over 100%. So that tells me there must be some overlap. In other words, some of these runners are also participating in other exercise activities. So there must be some overlap. That's the first thing that we have to realize. So to illustrate this for you, I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to try. Well, that's not a circle. I need it to be a perfect circle because that represents all the members in the club. This is 100% or all the members. Now we know that half of them, 50%, are runners. So let's cut this circle in half and go ahead and designate this 50%, this half, to be the runners. Okay, so I'm going to, I need to think carefully how I want to do this. I think let's do it with color. That will illustrate the concept of overlap. So I'm going to shade this half of the circle. Could be the other half, it doesn't matter. It's just that 50% of the club are runners. And 70% are doing other exercise activities. So I'm going to shade the other half of this circle to show you the others, but this is only 50%. So I'm going to have to go into this circle a little bit, this part of the, so that I can shade 70%. And this will let you see the overlap. You see that some of the runners are also members of this group that do other forms of exercise. So not only do they run, they do other sorts of exercise. Maybe they play volleyball or they lift weights. There's some other exercise going on. So, at minimum, for this to work, 20% right here have to be in the overlap, at least 20%. And that gives me a clue to my answer. at least 20% have to be in the overlap. So I know it's going to be A or B. I can eliminate A because I know there is overlap. There has to be, because 120% would be greater than the whole group, and that could not happen. So I know I can eliminate the choices to get the answer to be B, as in boy. But let me show you with an illustration where that 50% is coming from. You can see in this picture that I've drawn where the 20% comes from. But let's see how the 50% could be a factor. So to do that, I'm going to draw another circle, and I'm going to try to get it to be the same size. I should have copied one. That's pretty close. Okay, so I'm going to draw in half. We know that half of them are runners. They tell us that right off the bat. So I know that half of the circle, and just to keep it similar to the first drawing, I'm going to shade the left side. So this half would be my runners. Okay. And then I know that I have to get 70% of the circle to be the other group. But is there anything to say that it has to be the other side of the circle? In other words, this is 50%. So what if all the runners do other kinds of activity? Plus, that's only 50%, so we would have to go ahead and take it to 70%. Somewhere right there. I'll have to do a little bit of erasing, maybe. Maybe not. But what if this were the case? What if 50%, all of the runners, plus 20% of the other members were doing the other exercises? So here's the 50% plus that other 20. So the entire running group could be in the other activity category. So if this were the case, if this is actually what's going on, it means that 50, 60, 70, 30% of the group does nothing. And if they're members of a health club, I doubt this is the case, but it could be. We can't assume anything. So this percentage would be the other category. This one would be the runners and some other form of exercise. But it's possible. So somewhere between 20 and 50% of this group could be in both categories. So I'm going to opt for answer B, as in boy. This is a tough question. And again, you can do it using math symbols. The set notation, I think, is probably what they're trying to get us to do. But that's way more complicated than I want to go. So hopefully this is not terribly confusing. I was going to look. They list this one as a hard question. So they realize that this one is tougher than average and would therefore carry more points. Or not more points, but more, well, yes, more points. More weight toward your test score, if you get it correct.